Hi, welcome back to the Wisdom of Your Soul. I'm your host, Janice Mary, and I'm so glad you're back with us. I have a really interesting mantra for us to do this morning. When I woke up this morning, instead of writing out a post, I decided I would just tape a show. So here I am. So I hope that this helps you today. So what I felt this morning when I was connecting to my soul and doing, a short little meditation, which really isn't a formal meditation. When I wake in the morning, I just ask my soul, I kind of go into that energy that lives within our body, that really is who we are. It's hard sometimes for me to wrap my brain around it. So if you're just beginning learning how to connect to your soul, it might be difficult for you to also understand, but you don't really have to. The mind, again, is so limiting. So we sometimes have to just move out of the limitation and just trust that what we know to be true is really true, because the knowing is much, much stronger than the mind. So this morning, I just ask, what is it that I need to know today, and what is it that I could share? What's going to help me in my life and the lives of the people that I work with, and then also with you. So what I heard this morning was a mantra, which was, just a really nice mantra. And I'll tell you, this is what it is. I am so much more than I think. And it's just a very simple mantra. And if you just say that to yourself all day today, I am so much more than I think, it really does kind of get your mind out of that negative place. And it also gets your mind out of just thinking your normal everyday thoughts. So anytime, in your day today that your thoughts just kind of running and they're a little bit on automatic pilot, and you start to feel that they're triggering you in any way, shape, or form, whether they're triggering you in a fearful way, whether they're triggering you in an insecure way. Sometimes people wake up in the morning and start thinking about things that just instantly trigger them. So before that happens, I try to connect with my soul, and that really, really helps me. So it puts me in a good place to start my day. So I hope that helps for you too. And I feel like this is a very loaded mantra, because I am so much more than I think is very telling to me when I was kind of questioning, I'm so much more than I think. So what does that exactly mean? And then I instantly heard, your mind, what you think, is so limited that you can't possibly see the totality of you as a soul. You can't possibly think into how much you are, not how less you are. So our minds won't let us see the truth of us, which is all really, really good. And I thought that was really, really interesting and very exciting too. So if I know that my mind is so limited, it'll never let me see the, myself in full, then I can try to challenge myself out of my mind a little bit and more into that soul energy. So what we really have to do is say, okay, my mind can only take me so much. So my mind can only take me so far. I mean, our minds are wonderful, and they can do many wonderful things and create and invent and do all those things just like a computer. But when it comes to evaluating ourselves, our minds can only go so far. So that's what the soul was encouraging me to move out of, that what you think, you can't possibly think correctly about you. And I can see that about myself, and I can see that about my clients, that, it's hard to not think that somehow you're less than, it's hard to not constantly compare yourself to other people. And especially in this day and age with all the social media, we just compare ourselves relentlessly to other people, and we have a lot of more avenues now to do it than we ever have. And social media can be a beautiful thing, but it also can be a very comparative thing for people, and can be something that causes people a lot of pain. I know a lot of my clients will come in and talk about what they've seen on Facebook or Instagram, and how other people's lives look like they're so much better than theirs, and the pain that causes within them. So I kind of try to help them to see, well, okay, you don't know what's going on in other people's lives, but let's say, they are having this great life, which is great for them. I'm glad they're having a great life. What is it saying about you if you are jealous of other people's lives? Maybe, perhaps, you're just not doing the things you want to do. So let's look at the things you want to do instead of getting caught up on what everybody else is doing. Because sometimes what everybody else is doing looks good, but it's not something I would ever want to do. I might not want to travel to Africa, but if I see somebody on a safari, I might be so jealous of that. But then when it really comes down to it, is that one of my desires? No, not really. So we always have to be very careful and question ourselves a little bit about what we're getting jealous of and how to handle that. And that helps the trigger of not feeling good enough. So if we're saying our mantra and we're looking at Facebook, that could help, because it takes you out of your mind. It takes you out of the limits of being human, and it takes you out of the rat race of this world. So if I know that I'm so much more than I could ever imagine, then Facebook seems pretty small. When you put it in that kind of perspective, your whole perspective changes. So that kind of mantra is a perspective change, and broadens us and helps us to move out of the limitations of the mind. And that's what's really, really important. And if you ask yourself, I am so much more than I think. If you ask yourself, does that resonate at all? Is there a knowing about that? Don't think about it, because your mind's not going to let you. But if there's a knowing that, yeah, I think that could be true. Not only for me, but for everybody. We are all so much more than we think and know. Science is just at the tip of the iceberg of figuring out, how complex, complicated, and how wonderful we truly are. But we tend to stay more on the negative end of things, which is we're more less than more than. So, that sign in math, less than, more than, let's stay on the more than sign and not the less than, because we'll feel so much better. And when we stay that we're in that mantra of I am more than I think, it's an individual thing too. It's not an ego thing. I'm not saying I'm more than I'm thinking, I'm better than you, which the ego loves to do. The ego is all full of comparison. I'm going to compare myself to somebody else. And also the state of I think more than I am, when that comes from the ego, it's very temporary, because the ego needs things to feel that way. So when the ego is saying I'm more than I think, it'll be more like I'm more than I think because I'm making a lot of money. I'm more than I think because I have a big house. I'm more than I think because, I've created this beautiful life. And all those things are temporary. All those things are temporary. So one day we may have a lot of money, and the next day we may lose it all. So if we're basing our whole sense of worth on the ego is very, very fragile and very volatile. And one day the ego will be agreeing that this thing is the thing that's making you wonderful, and then the next day it's not enough. So today the money might be enough, and then tomorrow it's just nothing. So that's what the ego does. It's constantly getting us to look to the next thing, which isn't bad. I mean, it's very motivating on some level. But if it gets us in this rat race of thinking, that sometimes we don't even know why we're doing what we're doing. There's a great book called Start With Why. And just the title, you don't even have to read the book. Start with why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing what I'm doing because my ego is telling me to do it? Or am I doing it because I really, really love what I'm doing, and I really have a great desire around what I'm doing? So we always have to be questioning ourselves, because we are so brainwashed by the world and by all the social media, which kind of tells us what we should and shouldn't be doing. So getting back to my clients, if they come in and they're jealous of Facebook, I first have to ask them, are people doing anything that you truly, truly would want to be doing? And usually the answer is no, because a lot of times we do the things we truly, truly want to do. Would it be great if we could travel more and do more things? Yes, that would be great. But we truly get to do the things that are the most important to us, that really is in our heart. If we're a family person, we spend time with our family. If we like to go out to the movies or do stuff like that, we get to do that. So, we do, for the most part, a lot of the things that we love to do. It's just that sometimes, if we just in this constant evaluation of ourselves, which is what social media does, then we feel like a failure. We're feeling like we're failing. And, because I do this work and talk with so many people, I can see where people's minds are going and what they're struggling with and what they're being triggered with. So that's why it's so important when we do something different, like asking our soul or asking spirit or asking God or, your angels, whatever you resonate with. When you go into a different place, you do get a different perspective, and it's all about perspective. So we have the ego's perspective, and then we have the soul's perspective. And I'll have to say, every time I consult with the soul, it's a much, much more loving, kind, uplifting, and helpful perspective. And sometimes I even question it. It's like, wow, that is so loving and so kind. Is that really real? And, that's my ego trying to doubt something that's good. Why would we doubt something that's good? It sounds crazy. How can I just, think good about myself and other people? But the ego is definitely always on the side of, be careful and don't trust that. And, that's just the ego. So we just have to continue to challenge ourselves to move out of the ego. So a mantra like this is basically all it's doing is trying to get you out of your thoughts. So the minute you start thinking about something, say, you have a worry about, your children. And so that starts running in your mind. And then all of a sudden it starts triggering other things. And then it's starting to trigger your own past and your own growing up. Then you're off and running, and you could be living in an internal state all day long about being worried about your children. So if you say this mantra in the middle of that and say, I'm so much more than I think, that first of all interferes in your mind. It breaks it. And that's helpful in and of itself. So if you just said this mantra over and over and over, guess what you're doing? You're not thinking anymore. Or you're slowing that thought process down. You're slowing the triggering mechanism that's happening within you. So if you have to say it all day long to stop that triggering mechanism, I would recommend it. Or I would do something else that I like to do that would get me out of my mind. So it does sound difficult, but it really isn't once you kind of get the hang of it. But a mantra is a really nice, easy way to remind yourself of really who you are. And the minute you remind yourself of who you are, you do have a sense of knowing. Just ask yourself, does that resonate with you? I am more than I think. I'm so much more than I think. If that resonates with you, take that with you today and let that statement prove your day. Instead of I am so much less than, I'm so inferior, you don't want to take that into your day, because then again, like we talk about, we're creating an internal state that is really not, it's just hellish. It's just not a good place to be. So we have the mantra or we have the ego, and that's really our choice. And we want to stay more, with the mantra, because that's our soul energy. And our soul, again, has nothing but nice, loving, kind words to say to you. So let's stick with that. So let's say it together. I am so much more than I think. One more time. Let's just say it together. Take a deep breath. Let it out. I am so much more than I think. I am so much more than my mind will ever allow me to think. How does that feel to you? Where does that settle into your body? does the ego start immediately screaming, well, that's not true, that's not true, that's ridiculous, she doesn't know what she's talking about? What comes up for you? Do you get instantly triggered, or do you get instantly soothed? You might have to say it a few times to kind of settle the ego down, because the ego wants to convince you that it's right, that following its way is the way to go. And to just live by the ego is more important than living by your soul. And it is a way to go, and it can be a nice life. It doesn't have to be a bad life. But we're missing an opportunity. We're missing an opportunity of great growth on behalf of ourselves. So if you want to, explore yourself further, if you have a feeling that you are more than you think, and if you feel like for some reason you're not living in your potential, then this would be something to explore. Because there's just so much we can do in the world. There's so much success we can have before people will start to feel a little empty. Like, is this all that there is? And no, there's not. There's so much more. So just when you kind of feel a little bit bored with the world, you can start exploring your spirit and your soul, which is so expansive, and there's so much learning there that I don't think we could ever get that done. And maybe that could take many, many lifetimes. So I, choose to explore my soul a little bit here, because it's helping me so much in my life and in my practice. I have a lot going on in my life right now. I'm really, really busy and have a lot of changes happening. And some of them are in the world's view, welcome changes, and some of them are not. So if I'm caught in my mind thinking about all these changes, I could give myself a nervous breakdown, pretty much, because there's that many changes. But if you're in your soul energy, you know that you're being guided and you're being helped along the way, and your path is being smoothed out for you. And no matter what is going on, it's supposed to be happening. So the changes that come or things that happen to you in your life, you have a different perspective of them. So my old perspective would give me a nervous breakdown, and the soul perspective gives me support. And we all need support, no matter who you are. I don't care who you are. We all need support. And sometimes because we're in our own pain, we can't be there for each other, unfortunately. So that's the benefit of going to see a therapist, or a life coach, or a spiritual counselor, anybody that you feel comfortable with, that you can share your thoughts with, so that you can get a different perspective. I mean, that's pretty much what therapy is. It's a different perspective of you. Your perspective has curdled like bad milk. And a therapist will help you see that really hasn't happened, that nothing could ever expire you, and so to speak. Nothing, because we're eternal. So even if we're curdling, it's for a very short time, and then we're in the spirit world, and we're just in our spirit bodies doing the same thing that we're doing here. So it's all good. But you don't know all of that until you explore the soul spirit energy. You wouldn't know that. And I didn't know that. So I didn't have the support that I do now. So as I go through these changes, if I stay out of my thoughts and stay out of my ego, the changes are so much easier. The minute I go into my ego and my thoughts, those trigger me, and that's not good. So I can see the difference, and I can choose. I can say, all right, do I want to keep going down the path of my ego, or do I want to get out of my thoughts and just let my soul, my spirit lead me through each moment in each day? And that is a lot easier than, letting your ego take the lead, because the ego really stresses us out. And that's what I can see with my clients, some very stressed out people, because the ego is leading them. The ego is, bringing out those feelings of less than, on the other side of that mathematical sign, and they've been living on the lesson sign for many, many years. And so it's a challenge of a therapist to help them go to the more than sign, that they're more than they think. So you want to challenge yourself out of the mind, because you're not going to be able to, kind of move out of your ego without it. It's really, really difficult to just move out of your ego and not have some other sense of balance, support, or perspective. So this soul energy, the energy that lives within you, gives you this completely different perspective. And that's the perspective that we all need. Because honestly, it's just a really loving perspective, and it's a perspective that speaks of your abundance of who you are and your gifts, and brings you to different parts of yourself. That your soul will bring you to maybe the writer in you, or the actor in you, or the comedian in you. That's what the soul will bring you to, all the different parts of you. I have these cards that sometimes I do with people, and it shows gifts, like all the different gifts that you could have. And a lot of times it's, an artist, or it's someone that likes to travel. And a lot of times when I do these cards with people, they are surprised at some of the things that they get, because they'll get like the artist card, and they will have had a feeling that maybe they are good in art in some way, but they just haven't gotten the opportunity. So of course the soul will point out to us what we truly desire, and what we really want to do. Not what the world tells us we should be doing, and not what Facebook tells us what we should be doing, and not what other people are doing. What other people are doing may not be a fit for you. So it's always getting back to, why am I doing what I'm doing? And it's never wrong to be doing what you're doing. We're always learning something. Even if you're in a job you hate, you're always learning something. So it's never a wasted experience, soul tells me, that you can never be on the wrong path. They're just other paths for you. And if you open up to your soul, you'll have the confidence, and you will also have the support to try it. I wouldn't be doing half the things that I'm doing if I didn't feel the support from my soul and from the other souls that are crossed over. It's just an amazing amount of support. And we need that. We need that help when we're trying to evolve from the ego thinking, when we're trying to move out of these patterns of thought that trigger us into these bad internal states for days and days and weeks and weeks. And some people are just triggering left and right, and living in all kinds of pain. And that's just, something that each of our souls, our individual souls, and then our collective soul, wants us to evolve from. And that, I think, is a big message, for me, trying to help people to move out of these thoughts and to just explore this more intuitive path, to not think so much, to move out of the limited ego mind, because your ego is going to tell you things of the world, and the ego is going to tell you things that you've learned already. So there's really nothing new to learn from the ego. So in a way, we can kind of just say, you know what, there is nothing new here. It's the same old, same old. My ego has been telling me the same thing since I can remember, since I've been 8. The ego has been telling me the exact same thing. And if you write down what the ego says to you, it will be very similar to what the ego said to you 40 years ago, So the ego is saying always the same thing, is always comparing, and is always trying to convince you of your worth based on what you're doing in the world. And, that's a very fragile sense of self. And we all have that. It's very fragile. You can just see it within people, that the minute they have something that they've been doing that falls apart, that the person just falls apart. So we really want to build who we are on something that is the truth. It's more knowledgeable, which is our soul. Our soul and our essence is really the truth of who we are. And that takes no convincing at all. So when you go into this energy within you, you don't have to convince yourself. You don't need things to convince yourself because you're already whole and complete. And there's nothing that you have to do. And there's nothing that you have to become. And there's no rules. So when you're in that energy, you just know that. And then you can then choose what you want to do. Because there's no, I have to do this to prove my worth. I have to become something so that my ego will settle down. I have to achieve, or I'm not going to leave myself alone, or if I don't achieve enough, I'm going to feel really, really guilty. Or if I'm not able to provide enough for my children, I'm going to feel really, really bad. And that's all ego talk. It's ego speak, and we don't want to live according to the ego. We want to live according to our soul energy, which is unlimited and loving and supportive. And, that's just a much, much nicer place to be. So when you're doing your mantra today, pay attention, just really pay attention to what is going on internally and write it down. I'm being triggered about this. Now my ego's bringing up something really scary. Now my ego's bringing up my kids. I settled down all my thoughts about myself, and now my ego's going on to my kids or my friends or my animals, my pets. The ego is relentless in trying to trigger us. So we really have to just say, okay, you don't want to fight with your ego. You just want to say to yourself, okay, I can think about that later. I'm going to shelve that. I'm going to think about that later. And I'm going to just say nothing bad is happening in this moment. And I'm going to move out of my thoughts, and I'm going to continue my day. And I'm just going to be in my day. And like Eckhart Tolle talks about, just be in the moment. So it's much easier to be in the moment, one moment at a time, without thought. If you're in the moment with all your thoughts, you don't want to be in that moment. You want to be in the future, or you want to be in the past. You do not want to be in the moment if your thoughts are triggering you. And that's understandable. And that's why a lot of people do have a hard time living in the present moment, because it's so triggering. If you're sitting and you're not distracting yourself in some way, and you're just thinking and triggering yourself and feeling miserable, that's not the way to go. So the best thing for us to do is to challenge ourselves, to just challenge ourselves and say, you know what? I have been thinking the same things for years and years, and I'm so sick of it. And I do want to evolve, and I do want to be something more. I want to be more me, and I want to make sure that while I'm here, that I'm doing all the things that I truly, truly desire, and not what other people are telling me to do, but the things that I truly want to do. And if that looks really different than other people, so be it. Your soul will always support what you want to do, whether you want to stay home and watch TV, whether you want to do workshops on mediumship. Your soul is your greatest cheerleader. Your soul will be clapping on the stands for you as you do the things you truly, truly enjoy, and you're not doing them for your ego. I think sometimes it's rare that we're not doing things for our ego mind. And, we want to really challenge that. And we want to have the soul remind us, well, what is it? What is in my heart's desire? What is it that I want to do? And your soul will bring an image to you, whether it's taking guitar lessons or learning some kind of spiritual, doing tarot or angel card readings or anything that it is. But it's not going to be something that, maybe other people would like to do. And that's fine. That's just the uniqueness of each of us. So even though we're all one, we're a collective soul, we have individualized. So we want to take advantage of the individual essence that we have come into in this lifetime and use it in a way that we can really enjoy. So moving out of the ego mind is the way to really enjoy your life much, much better, even if all hell is breaking loose. Right now, if I did a tarot reading, I think I would get the Tower, so, and the ego would be like, wow, that's a really bad card to get, you know. But the soul is like, no, you know, bring it on. You know, this is good for you. You know, this is challenging you. You know, it's not good to get so settled in your life. You know, just when people are winding down, you're just beginning. And that's not a bad thing. But that's my soul's perspective. My ego would be saying quite other things about my life. So, again, we need to move into that soul energy. And when we are going through changes and typical challenging times, it does propel us more into the soul energy, so which is really good because you need more support. So the more things that happen, the more I ask for help, and the more support I get, and then the more I have to teach. So that's a win-win. So any challenge that I might be faced with is a blessing and has a silver lining. And, you know, that little quote is really true. There's always a silver lining. And nothing like the soul energy, when you go into that energy, will definitely point it out to you and say, well, this is happening for this reason. And it's a good reason. And it's a completely different perspective than you would ever think it would be. So it's a welcome perspective as opposed to the ego's perspective. So when we do a mantra, remember, when you're doing a mantra, it is going to short circuit your mind and pull you back into the body and pull you back into the present moment so that you can have a day without thought, or if your thoughts are triggering you, that you keep moving out of thoughts. You know, for a while, the best thing that I was doing when I would get too triggered is that I would just listen to tapes, you know, so that it would soothe whatever trigger was happening. And I did that for years. I mean, I would listen to Abraham Hicks, or I would listen to Eckhart Tolle, and I would just listen and just not let my thoughts get the best of me. And that was like step one for me, you know, to just do that, to get out of the things that I was thinking. And that really helped. It really, really helped. And it got me from being triggered back into the soul energy. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. I was intuitively doing that, and I wasn't realizing that that's what was happening. Now I can consciously feel myself going into that soul energy, but it did take time, and it was over time that I just noticed that things were not triggering me as much as they used to. And life just wasn't triggering me as much. So stay on this path, because it is a beautiful path, and it's a path full of love and support for you and admiration for you, and you know, just a great deal of devotion to you. You know, that's what you feel. You know, there's nothing bad in the soul spirit world. So don't let anybody ever tell you that there is. And you have to figure that out for yourself. You know, if you feel anything bad in the soul or spirit energy, you're in your ego, because I have never, ever felt anything bad. Nothing but love and support for each one of us. And there's no ego there. You know, in this knowing, there's no ego. There's just, you know, this is you, but this is also everybody else. So what we feel for you, we feel for everybody. So there's no special ones, and there's no, you know, gifted ones, as we like to kind of make little idols out of people. The soul will say that's just not really true. You're all gifted. You're all special. You're all unique. And if you move back into the soul energy, you can see how, and move into that. And that will be very different than what the ego has for you, because it's much more than what the ego has for you. So I used to think, well, if I really, you know, just let go and do this whole spiritual journey, will I end up, you know, in upstate in a cabin by myself? You know, that was my fear. Would I lose all my motivation in my life? And if anything, it's the reverse. My life has changed so much, and doing so many things that I want to be doing. So it was the actual reverse of that ego fearful thought. So if you think by, you know, going on a spiritual journey and relaxing more into your soul and into your intuition about you, that it's going to be quiet, you're very wrong. It's going to be very exciting and much, much more. Like what people will say, we underestimate ourselves, and it's always so much more than we believe. And that, I can tell you from my own experience, is true. So today, I want you to just say your mantra and watch what comes up for you. And if you do get triggered, if the ego gets you, shelve the ego and just try to come back into the present moment. And just keep asking your soul for help, and keep asking your soul for signs, and just let yourself flow into your day. Let your soul just flow you into your day, and try not to make any evaluations of yourself or other people. Just try to stay out of it. If you feel yourself being triggered at work, just try to stay out of it and keep saying your mantra. I am so much more than I could ever imagine. I'm just so much more, and let me feel that. My soul, please let me feel the truth of that statement, and take that into your day today and see how it goes. Okay, I hope this was helpful. As always, leave any comments or questions, and have a beautiful day. Take care. Bye-bye.